We just learn this Gemara together as a hakdama to this next paragraph in Reb Tzadik. Gemara says, Amar Dovid Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is a Gemara in Shabbos Daf Lamed. Dovid HaMelech said to Hashem, Ribbon Shloilam, Mecholi al Oisai Avai. Give me mechila, forgive me for the avera that I did. Amar Loi, so Hashem said, Macholach, Amaychel you. Amar Loi, so Dovid HaMelech said, Aseli ois b'chayai, Asei imi ois b'chayai. Can you give me some kind of a sign that you're Amaychel me? Amar Loi, Hashem said, no. B'chayecha eni moitia. During your lifetime, the sign will not be given. This truth will come out, that I was mochel you, this truth will come out only during the time of Shlomo HaMelech. Now, it's important to understand this. We're a mature audience. So it's important to understand what was going on over here. Dovid HaMelech said, Moichel me means you did something wrong. Hashem said, I'm Moichel you. So what, he didn't believe him? Give me a sign. What do I need a sign? If Hashem said, I'm Moichel you, I'm Moichel you. So, first of all, what are we talking about? Just to review the psukim. The pasuk says in Shmuel Beis Yud Aleph, this is what we're talking about. By Hi Le'eser, that it was one evening, one fine evening in Jerusalem. By Yaakov Dovid Me'al Mishkavai, that Dovid HaMelech got out of his bed. By Yishalech Al Gag Beis HaMelech, in Yerushalayim, he was walking on the roof of the palace. Vayar Isha Roichetzes Me'al Hagog, and from there he was able to see a woman bathing under his roof. He had a view. Ve'aisha tovas mare ma'od, and she was a very beautiful woman. Vayishlach David, vayidrosh liisha, so Dovid HaMelech sent after this woman. Vayomer, who was that? Who was this lady? Vayomer, and they told him, Haloi zois bas Sheva bas Eliam, Eshes Uriah Hachitik. This is Uriah's wife, and that's bas Sheva. Vayishlach David malachim, and then David sent messengers. Vayikacheha, he cohabited with her, and he sent her home. This is a long story that follows it, but this was the Avera of Dovid HaMelech. This was not just an Avera, this was a scandal. This was a regular scandal, the kind of thing we see today often. Dovid HaMelech was the Melech, and was considered a Kadosh, and respected by all, and of tremendous Chachma, and of tremendous Kedusha, and tremendous military might. So Dovid HaMelech sees this woman and calls for her. She was an Eshes Ish, Nach Tirtzu, like, so even if you want to say times were different, she was still an Eshes Ish, she was Eshes Uriah. And he cohabited with her, and the rest is history, that he took the husband, and he sent her to war, and the Gemara is trying to be matzdik, but at the end of the day, what I want to bring out here is that from the time that Dovid HaMelech did this Aveira, why he did it, maybe Arizal has great shmuzin why he did it, but from the time he did this Aveira, Dovid HaMelech became a scandalous individual, meaning people viewed him as,
differently.
What's with Dovid HaMelech? Just imagine, this wouldn't have been Dovid HaMelech. Take out Dovid HaMelech and put in the Chazon Ish. I don't even say Chas v'Sholom because it's straight Dovid HaMelech. Let's say, put in the Chafetz Chaim. So Dovid HaMelech, bigger than them all, but this was the story that happened, and if you understand, it's important to understand for mature people that most of the Sefer Tehilim, for instance, was written around the scandal that he was living through his whole life, having to dodge the whistleblowers and I don't know that he was. I mean, the Gemara is matzdik him. I don't know that he was matzdik himself, but he said until Rabbi Moimrim Lenafshi Ein Yeshua Sabelikin. He had some very, very serious detractors with Dovid HaMelech, but they weren't the Rabbim Moimrim Lenafshi. He had big crowds of people that were against Dovid HaMelech. What kind of a person is this? And this is how he lived, and this is how he died. Nothing happened. And that's what this Gemara, nothing happened that vindicated him. And that's why this Gemara tells us that Dovid HaMelech said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the eyes of Chazal, Ribbon Shalom, Macholi Aloi Soyelvain, can you forgive me for this? And Hashem said, yes. Amar Loi Macholach. Amoichel you. So, okay, what's left? Amar Loi Asei Mi Ois B'chayhe. Can you make it know that you were Moichel me? Can you help me out of the scandal? Hashem said, no. Amar Loi B'chayecha Eini Moidia. In history, you'll go down as a good person, but not in your lifetime. Meaning, apparently, he had to have Yisurim for this. So he wasn't saying, I don't believe you that you were Moichel me. That's not the pshat. The pshat is, Asei bi ois b'chaya. Can you make some kind of a noise, like have a light shine out of my face or something? Some way to make it clear that I am innocent. Or he wasn't even claiming innocent. That I straightened it out. I was forgiven. In your lifetime, you're not going to have this. You're not going to be granted this wish of being vindicated in your lifetime. Not going to happen. During the life of your son, Shlomo HaMelech, Ani Modia. Now, this was not why he didn't build the Beis HaMikdash, because the Gemara says before, based on Sukkim, Ki Rabim Domim Shafachta, says the pasuk, because you're not one for the Beis HaMikdash because you did wars and you killed people. Anybody who's Shofech Dam, self can't build a Beis HaMikdash. But this is a picture, a different picture, I think, of Dovid HaMelech, who was sitting extremely uncomfortable from the time of the Ma'aseh Basheva till the end of his life, looking for an os so that to regain his credibility. So the Gemara says, which this part is a famous story, Kishabana Shlomo Beis HaMikdash, when Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, Bikesh lahachnis aron lebeis kodesh hakadoshim. He wanted to build the Beis HaMikdash. Now bring the Aron Kodesh, which was already around from the time of Dovid HaMelech. Let's bring that into this Beis HaMikdash. Obviously. Bikesh lahachnis aron lebeis kodesh hakadoshim. Dafku sharim zebazeh. They couldn't get the doors open. It's like a strange miracle when you think about it. They couldn't get the doors open. Dafku sharim. Zebazet. No matter what, they came with crowbars, they came with locksmiths, they came with everything, Chabadniks, or everything. Anybody who knows how to open doors, nobody knew how to open the door. They couldn't get the door open. Amar Shlomo Esriv Arba Redonos. So Shlomo HaMelech started to daven, and he said 24 praises. He thought maybe there's a spiritual aspect to this. I can't get the doors open. Loi nana, he wasn't answered. Pasach va'amar, and that's where he said, Su shar, this is in Tehillim, Su shar mashechem inasu pischei olam v'yavai melech hakavod. He said, let the doors open, inasu pischei olam, let the doors be picked up, v'yavai melech hakavod, and let the melech hakavod come in. Ratu basrei lemivlei, Klal Yisrael was tired of their leaders. Pashas Rashi says this is Klal Yisrael, ran after him to beat him up. Lemivlei. Sabri says, Rashi dalatzme amar melech hakavod. The melech hakavod, open up the doors. Why aren't you opening up the doors? So they thought it was a ego trip. So when he saw that, he saw everybody misunderstood him. Abru, mihu ze melech hakavod. Hashem tzivakaisu melech. Right, so Hashem is the melech. So, okay, everybody count down. Su shar mashechem usu pischei elam yavei melech hakavod. Mihu ze melech hakavod. Hashem tzivakaisu melech hakavod sal. So that's what he said. Now here's the part of the Gemara that part of the Gemara everybody does, right? Here's the part that not everybody does. V'lo nemna. the door still didn't open. Okay, he got out of the problem of everyone thought that it was l'chvod atzma who dorish, but he still didn't get out. The door is open. Lo nana. Kiman Shamar, then he said, Hashem Elokim, Al Toshev Pnei Mashichecha, Zachra L'chaste Dovid Avdecha. And he evoked the name of Dovid HaMelech, and once he evoked the name of Dovid HaMelech, not just the name of Dovid HaMelech, L'chaste Dovid Avdecha, the chesed of Dovid HaMelech, Niyan, and the doors opened up. So this was a historic moment, a miracle of historical proportions that took place with Shlomo HaMelech, and it was at that moment that Dovid HaMelech was long gone. It was finally vindicated and showed that, wow, his name opened up the doors, right? My name opened doors. So if Dovid HaMelech's name's opened doors, so that means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was actually Moichelim. So even though Nebuch, Dovid HaMelech lived a life as an accused and a scandalous and a guilty person, and even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Moichelim, it was only in the time of Shlomo HaMelech that when the doors opened up that he was answered. And at that moment, says the Gemara, Nefchu pnei kol soinei David kishulei kedera. Everybody turned black, meaning everybody, when Dovid HaMelech became the tzadik, all of his naysayers, all of the enemies we lost. So it took that much time and that many years and this kind of a miracle to put down the all the enemies of Dovid HaMelech. V'yadu kol ha'am v'chol Yisrael, and it was at that moment that the whole Klal Yisrael knew Shemacha lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu al oisei avai. That Hashem was Michael. Al zeh omer Shlomo HaMelech v'shabeach aniyas hamesim shekvar mesim. It says in Koheles. So history had to vindicate Dovid HaMelech in his life. He didn't have that schus. People always say that, the truth wins at the end. But the end could be 50 years, 100 years, 200 years. It doesn't mean today necessarily. It's going to take a long time till the truth wins. MS takes a long time till it sprouts. It has to go through a lot of Gilgulim, until a lot of sheker, until it emes me'aretz titzmach. It has to be a tzmicha of emes. The emes here wasn't that Dovid HaMelech was innocent, although the Gemara says at one point Dovid HaMelech lo chata, but he did tshuva, and we see that there was certainly the Torah says that he did a chet. So now the question we have to ask is, why did he have to die to be vindicated to the people in his generation? After all, he did so much for them, and it was such Mesiras Nefesh, and he won their wars, and he acquired the land for the Beit HaMikdash, and he brought the Malchus Yisrael to a kavod. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell him, I'm moichel you, but I'm not going to show anybody during your lifetime? Why did it need history to vindicate Dovid HaMelech? That's the question that we need to answer. Why? I just, before I look at the Mefarshim, just the simple shot is, I think, that, we said Yom Kippur, Slach lanu, Machal lanu, Kaper lanu. So there's three things. There's the Slicha, we ask for forgiveness. There's Mechila, which is obviously a different level of forgiveness, and then there's Kapara. So apparently Dovid HaMelech was able to achieve the Slach lanu and the Machal lanu, but the Kaper lanu he was not able to achieve in his life. Now, what happened during history? He died. That's one thing that happened. There's different things that can achieve a kapara, but a kapara, it's the way I understand it. Just again, simple shot is, if I hurt you, as v'shalom, I hurt you. I spoke lashon hara about you. I spoke lashon hara about you. Now I ask you mechila. I'm sorry. I apologize. I said what I shouldn't have said, and you say because you're excited. Okay, I'm moichel you. Is it all over? I accept the apology. You accept the apology. Are we all straightened out? Not really. You don't really trust me. You know that I'm capable speaking Lashon Hara, you know that there's something there which is not what I thought in terms of our friendship. So yes, I'm moichel you, but there's no kapara here. Like we're not back to where we started. And possibly we'll never be back to where we started. That's what we learned last week. That ein takana, according to what Shlit'a, right, or Rabbi Bar Chaba, there's no takana l'masapri Lashon Hara. The hurt is there. The hurt remains. We could apologize. We could, everything can be fine. We can hug each other, but there's still some. The damage was done, and I don't trust you. With HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's also that I'm moichel you, and he was moichel Dovid HaMelech, but I don't know that I can, at least not in your life, we can't get to the next madrega. So why can't it be in his life? So I actually put it in. Just give me 1 second, see if I can get this here. Forgive me for a moment. Rav Kook has a sefer on Sefer Shabbos, and this actually comes up. I would like to read you what he said, but his nekuda is. Amar Dovid asay mi ois l'toiva. Says Rav Kook, this is his words. Ha'avain oisa ba'adam roishim shlo yuchalis alois lefi haroi eloi lefi malose bekishrin kedusha b'toiv hamidois v'ruach nadiva. Avon, Avera, holds a person back and doesn't allow him to get to where he has to get to. That's the problem with sin. Okay. Ikara mechila hi shetasa nafshe muksheres lekabel ha'or ha'toiv shel ha'chachma v'atzadik. What mechila does is it gives you the ability to be mekabel the or ha'toiv shel ha'chachma v'atzadik. Puts me back, mechila puts me back to where I was before I did the chet in terms of being able to grow spiritually. However, besides for what's going on in my nefesh, my personal nefesh when I do a chet, there's also how does the world see me after I've done a chet. That's our case over here. A tzadik, especially with a tzadik, levad pulasei ba'atzmai, besides for what's going on in his own nefesh and his own avodah, oisem roshim shel hoid ala olam hachitzoni, he makes a roshim of hod. That's what hod is. Hod is the reflection of light on the olam hachitzoni. Ukefi erech midas hatzedek hanimtzas b'nefesh adam hagadol kenti marvish pul's rishuma shel olam chitzoni. That's the effect that a person has on this world, going outwards. Al kain. The fact that Dovid HaMelech received Mechila didn't help Lagabe Shabbos Boichelim, but that didn't necessarily help Lagabe how people see him. Dahainu Sheyashiv Loi Koichai Hapnimi Ruach HaKodesh Var Hashem V'chet V'Sishuasai Ki Koidem Achet. He did receive back his Ruach HaKodesh, and that's, again, as I say, most of Tehilim is written about this. Al tashlichenu milfanacha, ruach kodshecha al tikach mimeni. Dovid HaMelech, his whole life, his whole tillah, his whole tefillah was, get me out of this scandal. I made a mistake. I messed up. But isn't it amazing, by the way, how how a person can be such a tzaddik and such a warrior for Klal Yisrael, such a good soldier for the Jewish people, and Talmud Chacham. We're talking about something beyond a Talmud Chacham. In 10 minutes, he can mess up the whole thing. 10 minutes of typo falling into a trap and mess up everything. 10 minutes is a Chazon Ish shir. A minute. One mistake. David HaMelech's the whole end of his life, he had to die, Nebuch. What did they say in his Levaya? No. We see this. One mistake.
He was a tzadik. bypassed it. Yosef HaTzadik, when bypassed the whole thing, he was able to do that.
He was able to.
But really, there are no mistakes. I mean, it was in Hashem's
On one level, for sure.
Yeah.
On one level, there's no mistakes. On another level, look what you did. Look what you did. And that's why he said this part, I messed up. Ruach HaKodesh, al tafslichenu v'nach. Ruach HaKodesh, Rabbi Marmim l'nafshi, ein yeshuasa b'lekim. This is the whole Tillim. The whole Tillim is, at some level, I guess we're all in this, we didn't do scandals, but at some level we're all in this mess over here. That's why we relate to Tillim so much. So says Rav Kook.
I think it's the other way around, isn't it? Dovid HaMelech was able to express that to him because of that on behalf of Klal Yisrael.
Okay, Amos. And that's why there's no mistakes. This was, I'm sorry. Bikesh gam kein ois, he asked for an ois. What does it mean, an ois? Not only be moichel me, but let me receive, not only give me back my Ruach HaKodesh, not only give me back my nevuah, but give not by my hisalus and my nevuah, but let me also have this hashba again on Klal Yisrael. Let me be good in their eyes. V'yachser l'malos hashba asel yoyna al olam achitzoni ki koydem achet la'achriyam l'toy b'shmoi hatoy. V'regesh hakedusha shemismalos kol nefesh midai dibra boy. So Samaris who davar nimna lahashiv l'adam b'shleimusay b'ardachayim. So on this the Gemara says, Hashem said that, sorry David, this is not something that can be done while you're alive. Rak achar shekfar cholav, only after you pass away. Oz yavay acheshmin habar shal pulasay ba'olam u'b'svivav ligalos al piamitas hamish. But it's only then, after you die, when you're not in front of us any longer, that people will be able to see you're good again. Listen to these words, Rav Kook. Hagaguim, the longings that people had for Dovid HaMelech after he died. Shemitztarvim l'davar she'eino kfarim achayim. To add that to his good that's no longer alive. Po'alim lahaser as hazilzul. That's what took away the zilzul hadimyoni shirashim achet al abriyos b'schirosai. Tshuva couldn't do this part. The only thing that can do it is you have to die. And then he says, and then the people, we always say it as a joke, Achri Mois Kedoshim Emor. But it's an emes, that the Achri, when you're not here anymore, so your Averis are not in front of you, in front of us. We're not looking these Averis straight in the face. On the other hand, we miss you. There's Gaguim. So what happens is now we're able to look at things with a certain kind of an emes. Achri Mois Kedoshim Emor, which is the joke, means that after a person dies, it's possible at least to let history judge Dovid HaMelech. History has judged him well. But in your lifetime, as long as you're alive, it's in front of us. It's in front of us. We can't do anything about it. So emes, no. it's like so emes that
Also, the kid is gone. People have been counting him.
Yeah, all those things, all the midos that make one person, that make the whole world hate somebody, and be jealous of that person, and be all of it. It's all gone. He died, and somehow or another, the good is Mitzrayim, because that's what we miss. That's what we miss.
He also said that the real Malchus has to get their hands dirty to raise things up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what his life was all about.
And people could see that only though afterwards.
Afterwards, right.
My heart goes out to him. I mean, look, you made a mistake. You make your bed, you gotta sleep in it. But wow, it's like such a mistake and such a bed to sleep in.
Do you know how old he was at the time?
That's a very interesting question. But this was in the midst of his malchus. This wasn't when he wasn't an old man. It was in the midst of his mouth. Was that clear?
Was the balance of his mouth was totally ineffective?
Not totally ineffective. He was effective at wars. He was effective at building Yerushalayim. But he wasn't effective as a tzadik.
At all? He wasn't effective?
In Yerushalayim. As a tzadik.
How much of Sefer Tehilim was written before?
The Sefer Tehilim is divided into a number of parts. Some of it is, songs, poetry that he wrote for the Levium to say. Lamnatzeach Mizmor LeDavid, right? Shir Mizmor Lifnei David. These were the Shir HaMalois. Those were the ones that the Levium sang on the steps. There's different parts of it. There's parts of it that he was makabel from earlier generations, from Avram Avinu, Maskil Eson, from Moshe Rabbeinu, Tefillah LaMoshe, Isha Elikim. These were Tehillim that he was makabel. And then the rest of Tehillim, which is scattered through, is his own personal milchama and avoda that he had to go through, which is really the part that if you really read Tehillim carefully, that's the part that, as I say, on some level, we're all there. That's why this is important.
Wasn't the fact that Shlomo took over, that was in itself a vindication?
Why? But why? I mean, look at Yeravam ben Nevat. Look at Menashe. Chizkiyahu had a Menashe. Menashe had a Yoshiyahu. I mean, it didn't make any difference. With the Malchei Yisrael, they had tzadikim who were sons, and they were Rishayim.
The Haskana of the
The what? Shlomo no. That's true with Yoshiyahu also. He was the son of Menashe. Who was a Russia, killed everybody. And the scum of Menashe. So your kids only vindicate you so much.
But he was saying
Doesn't get you out of the hole. Doesn't get you out of the whole
He
story.
was saying that Shlomo came from Bathsheba, though.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah. Okay, I mean that's a pella unto itself. You can't answer a kasha with a pella. that in itself is a pella. How?
But didn't Bathsheba's first son die?
Yeah. Let me show you. That's what I read to you. That was Rav Kook and I found here that Rav Dessler, the Milio, Holy Beit, page 82. A bit of a different derech. Then there's Rav Tzadik. He says that I feel about Dovid HaMelech. The Gemara says in Dovid HaMelech was Hakim Oila Shel Tshuva. He really invented tshuva in the sense that.
That's what he was brought to life.
Yeah. In other words, like you talk about it had to happen. But I would hate to be this carbon. I'm here to teach you what happens when you sin. You know, you have like the like the Makoshesh Eitzim in the Chumash. Moshe Rabbeinu tells everybody you have to keep Shabbos. He goes out and he starts chopping wood. So the Gemara says that he was really a good guy. He just wanted to show what happens when you chop wood. So they killed him. Okay, that's a job. That's a job. I'll be the carbon. I mean, what a carbon he was that this Aver had to happen. Okay, it's a little bit, but he was Hakim Hayla Shel Tshuva. He taught the world about Tshuva. Pirush Hayra Lanu Darkei Tshuva, says Rav Dessler Matzinu. Even him who taught the world about tshuva, Matzinu, we find she'adayin tshuva lo ensconced b'chayav, that it was not revealed. The fact that he did tshuva and the fact that Hashem accepted his tshuva was not revealed in his lifetime. Nekuda daka b'tikkun offer. There was some nekuda. This is Rav Dessler, not Rav Kook, a different mahalach. There was some nekuda daka ba'avar which was not mesukan, apparently. Meaning, Rav Dessler is learning differently. He's learning that if it would have been a complete tshuva, would have been a complete tikkun, then he would have had an ois b'chaim too. So Hashem said to him, "I'm moichel you, but you don't have a complete tikkun. You weren't completely masakin, whatever that means." Shenishara b'choshech ad misasai. And he was stuck in this darkness until the day he died, including the day he died with it. Muva b'Gemara. The Gemara says about Metzius, Shesainav Hilbinu Panav al Ma'aseh Basheva. People were always heckling him about this Ma'aseh Basheva. This is scary. Since that people had the ability to heckle him for the Chet of Basheva, Tzarech Loimar, you have to say, Shenishara Adayin Nekuda Daka Shalachet. Must be some of the Chet was still there. Shadayin Leitukna Yidei Tshuva Zagadoila, even though he did such a big tshuva, and it wasn't still Mesukin. They had something to grab onto, to give him tsar. Do you hear this? This is very frightening. It means to say that the very fact that the people were able to ridicule him and heckle him meant that he wasn't 100% clean. I don't know. I mean, they heckled Moshe Rabbeinu too. He was about Gaiva. He wasn't about Gaiva. He was the Anu Mikol Adam. They heckled Moshe Rabbeinu. They were chashashu al Eishes Ish. He wasn't over the Averes of Eishes Ish. But what's the pshat? Like, how could it be that just because they found a makam, he means spiritually, they found a makam achiza, means he wasn't naki l'gamri. Something must have been there. I mean, does that mean that if somebody heckles us and hassles us, even if we're innocent, we must proclaim our innocence, but there must be something. There must be something that, that's frightening to me. Meaning how much, it's not just how much you have to worry about to be Yotzei the Das Abrius, but if people are choshed you with something, then there must be something there.
It's like people are charging you with a crime that you didn't do, but it gets out in the newspapers, and that's the same kind of thing.
No, I know, but does that mean that the person did something?
Yeah, that's what.
Why?
Maybe if you're a melech.
Oh, so maybe it's only a melech.
Saved.
Maybe it's only someone in Madriga who put it out with him also. Someone his Madriga of Kafu Pratis.
But everybody's a melech on their bita.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we say that in Lashon Hara? Previous class, we said that Lashon Hara, and someone's speaking Lashon Hara about you. So you're drawing it to yourself. There is something, some truth to the vulnerability.
Right. Just pretty. It's right. But what it means is that, in other words, if somebody's speaking about me, I know I didn't do what that person is saying. Or rob anybody, or rape anybody, but there must be something that brought that out. At least if you're a melech, let's be back to the chiddush. At least if you're a melech.
That's consistent with the Shittas Dessler here, that he wasn't mishalim his tshuva. So therefore, Hashem Yisbarach is going to bring along other ways to give us orders that you need to more tshuva to be done.
Yeah, but it's working the other way around. The raya is the other way around. How do we know he wasn't Bashav his tshuva? It's the other way around. How do we know he wasn't Bashav his tshuva? Because we're still talking about it. Well, maybe I did tshuva, you're still talking about it. I did tshuva that long ago. What are you talking about before? No, there would have been a makam achisa. Maybe there would have. I don't know if he means spiritually or physically or psychologically, but someone's like Rabbi Yaacov Haber, was a gadol adar. Rabbi Yaacov Haber made a shidduch with somebody who was not Maritz. Not the boy was an Amaretz, but the parents were Amaretz. So here's this Amaretz sitting with Rabbi Yaacov Haber and the Chassan and Kala, and they came before the Chassanas. So the Rabbi Yaacov Haber said, is everything okay? Is everything beseder? Is everything beseder? Did we straighten everything out? And the Amaretz said, as a joke, yeah, the only thing I'm worried about is if my mechutin is a chashuv in person or not. Rabbi Yaacov Haber is the gadol adar. That was his joke. Like, here's this Amaretz. Like Rabbi Yaacov Haber. So Rabbi Yaacov Haber became so upset. He said, like, how could he even say that about me in a joke? It must be there's something that I did which wasn't chashuv. This is scarier stuff than the whole Dovid HaMelech story.
By Dovid HaMelech, he could have done tshuva, I think, because the Gemara says that tshuva is not mechaper ad yom misa for chilul Hashem, right? So maybe it's the chilul Hashem shabo.
Okay. Yeah, by Dovid HaMelech was true. Anyways, that's basically what he says. V'rak b'shas misasa it took nagam nekuda achroinazu. It was only b'shas misasa with the misa itself that this Indian was masukan. Kediyisa b'Shabbos, like the Gemara we just learned in Shabbos, that it was only. In other words, he's learning that it wasn't after misa. It wasn't like Rav Kook says, the fact that he wasn't in front of us. was the kapara of Misa itself. The kapara, Misa itself is a kapara. The Gemara says, tshuva tayla, sometimes Yom Kippur b'chaper, sometimes Yom Misa b'chaper, so he needed the Misa. So here we have this very, like this is for a sophisticated oilam. On the one hand, the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, "I'm boichel you." Like your boichel be niskabel shuvas. I did shuva. Your boichel be machalach, machalach, machalach. What else do you want? Amnam nekuda daka b'tikun aver adayin loy bali de gilui. There was still some piece of this which did not get masukan. Rak al yedei gilui k'vayda yisbarach shemegala adam kishoyim b'nisyonis hagdolim shelifnei misasai. Have to go through the nisyonis of lifnei hamisa hashlamasei tshuvasei. Hushlam tshuvasei. V'nikle le'enei kol shechatoi tukan b'tikun gamor. Kiro sheniftacha beginai shari kodshei akadashim. So let's just dwell on this for another minute before we finish up this and get to the tzadik. Like, how it come? Well, again. Let's recap. Dovid HaMelech did a chet, big one, especially for a Melech, but for anybody a big one. He did tshuva, big time. Heikim oila shel tshuva. He got mechila. HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to him. Machalach. He wasn't vindicated. He says, "Okay, can everybody know that you were meichel?" No, not b'chayecha, only b'chay bincha. How was he vindicated at the end? Because the doors of the Aron Kodesh, the doors of the Beis HaMikdash, Su Shar Mashechem Inasu Pischel, the doors of the Beis HaMikdash opened up at the mere mention of Dovid HaMelech's name. Like, why was that his ois l'toiva? Beis HaMikdash was built. Maybe like the Shlit'a has to come. Like, why did his saving? How did history save him when the dafka this way by opening the doors of the Beis HaMikdash because of the mention of Dovid HaMelech? Why was that the moment of Yeshua? So Rav Dessler says, Ki rou sheniftachu beginoi shari kodshei akadoshim. What did Klal Yisrael see actually? They saw that ba'avur Dovid HaMelech, the doors of the Kodesh HaKadoshim were open. La'ois, and this was a sign. Ois, he asked for an ois. Sheniftacha kol pischei liboy shel Dovid HaMelech olav v'shal. That the doors of the Beis HaMikdash, the sha'arim of the Beis HaMikdash, were an expression of the doorways, the arteries of Dovid HaMelech's life. And if that opened because of Dovid HaMelech, that's a sign. The sheniftachu kol pischei libay shel Dovid HaMelech v'lo nishar by shum timtum. And when we talk about timtum halev, we're talking about like this hardening of the spiritual arteries. What we're talking about is that as he starts off, that with a chet, it means that there's a little bit of clogging going up on over here. Okay, basically freed up. The lathe is working. Everything is pumping. Things are okay, but there's still a little tikkun that needs to be made. And the ois of the tikkun was the psicha sharei Beis HaMikdash, because the psicha sharei Beis HaMikdash was indicative of the psichas sharei halei of Dovid HaMelech. Beautiful words. See, I think that the Arizal writes in the Ksavim that the Beis HaMikdash itself, Rechaim Lozhin brings this actually, in Shar Aleph brings the Zohar, that the Beis HaMikdash itself was connected Kaimas HaAdam. The Beis HaMikdash, every part of the Beis HaMikdash, and the Kodesh HaKadoshim is the lave of a person. So what you have, look at the Beis HaMikdash, if you take an aerial view of the Beis HaMikdash, you'll see a person laid out over there. This is what the Zohar says. Nefesh HaChaim, he elaborates this based on the Arizal completely. Now, the doors, here's the part that he doesn't bring the Nefesh HaChaim. it's not negated to what he wants to say. That the way it works is if, like, let's say, just very simply, you have the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you have the Kodesh, you have the Machne Shechina, you have the Harabayis. Each one is a lower level of Kedusha. Machne Ezras Nashim, Machne Yisrael. The way it works Kabbalistically is that this is the Lev Yerushalayim. This is the center, the life force of the Jewish people and of the world. The Evan Hashasiyah, Mimenu Shasas Kol Olam Kulai. It's coming from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and it's surrounded by a klipa. The klipa doesn't mean a bad thing. The klipa just means that, like an orange has a klipa, it has to be protected. And an orange has many klipos. It has that white thing, that's called the klipas noga, that it has the white on the inside. They have the one fisherman's net, and then you have the white in the inside of the peel, and then you have the inside, and then you have the orange part. And it gets less and less edible as you move out. And this is I'm saying this at a level that we can all understand. This is the klipas noga, which is almost the pri, and then the shalosh klipas hatzmeis. There's 3 levels of klipa, and until you get out to the bad legamri. In other words, this is all still part of the pri. So when you talk about the opening of the gates of the Beis HaMikdash, we're talking about a breaking of the klipa of the Lev. Tainohach. In other words, once we understand that the Beis HaMikdash is keneged the koimas ha'adam, it's easy to understand that when Shlomo HaMelech stood by the doors and the doors wouldn't open, which could be, okay, doors didn't open, bad design, guys. The doors didn't open. Shlomo HaMelech understood that we're not breaking through the klipa to get to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, meaning there's something artificial about what we're doing. There's something not real here. We're not really, we think we're all carried, we're all into this, and we're singing and we're dancing, and we have the Or Kodesh and the Beis HaMikdash and everything, Bizmor Shir Chanukas Habayis L'David. But the doors aren't opening. So the doors aren't opening means that there's some kind of a blockage. Some kind of a blockage which is not allowing the whole Shechina to happen. It's not just the lights aren't going on. It's just not happening. And it was only, this Lev was specifically the Lev of Dovid. Dovid was Dovid Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. So it was the Lev of the Melech. So what had to happen is, how do we get to something real? Shlomo HaMelech says, how do we get to something real? Ba'avur Dovid Avi rather. Open up the doors in the schus of Dovid HaMelech, meaning, as the Mr. Melio says, the doors opened up. The doors opened up when he mentioned Dovid HaMelech, and that was a simon to everybody, the deep people and all the people, that wow, beats to say that Dovid HaMelech's Lev this was not from the klipa at all. It was 100%. He returned to a point of complete kedusha. That was only nogeya when the earthly. How do we know? How do we know who did tshuva, who didn't do tshuva? The one thing we can't know is who's a Yer Shamayim, who's not a Yer Shamayim. We can see what people do. We don't see what people are. We can't see what people are in their hearts. This is the way we saw it. The way. This was the ois. And the ois was meduyak in the sharm of the Beis HaMikdash, which was the klipa to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. I think that's the pshat. So we'll take it from here tomorrow. Let's on to Reb Tzaddik. We had Reb Cook, Reb Dessler, a little bit of me, and now let's see how Reb Tzaddik understands the Gemara.
Also,
the vocabulary of mouth. It's like you say no.
No, I'm going. No, I can't work because of the march.
What is that?
It's